I'm Ellen. I head up outreach for the Hollywood Fringe Festival, and we're going to get started today. I wanted to get started by introducing Jen Crafts, who has been here and is going to say a few words.
Hi guys, welcome. So we're super excited to be hosting now this is the second one, second workshop of Fringe. Woo! We just did the first one like an hour ago. But I'm Jen Crafts. I'm the venue manager here at Studio Stage. So just a really quick bit about Studio Stage. It doesn't normally look like this. This is the Scottish play that's going to be here. They're actually closing tonight. They've been here for 6 weeks. It's a super versatile venue. Normally these walls are all white. The floor is black. And we have curtains coming from these holes and going back that way, so this is backstage. And then we do have a projector that we allow all of our producers to use during Fringe. So last year during Fringe we had 17 shows in here. This year our goal is to have 20. We have them all scheduled, hypothetically, already. But we love working with new producers. My husband Greg and I run this venue. We've been producing at Fringe since year 1. We love working with producers, and we do a whole series of how to Fringe if you're renting with us, and then we also do a lot of promotion for you guys too. Last year we made a video of all of our producers. We do lots of social media for you guys, and we help you out as much as we can. So great. If you have any questions, even if it's not about this, if it's just about producing at Fringe, let me know. I love talking about it. So welcome.
And then I also wanted to introduce Matt Quinn over here, who's another venue rep, and he has a few words too.
Hey, a few words. Hey guys, my name is Matt Quinn. I'm a 20-year producer and a venue manager here in Los Angeles. Last year we ran 6 venues and had over 84 shows. I just want to let you know, got some cards for you. We've got open house for one of our spaces, Studio C, next Wednesday from 6 to 8. It's a great chance to come check out the space and also meet people in the community, get your networking and fringing going. And I also teach a separate seminar on how to produce a Hollywood Fringe show. I've got 2 dates coming up in November, December. This guy took it. You can talk to him about it afterwards. Yeah, that's a good sign. And I'm also happy to help you with any questions or anything you may have. I'm heading out, so I'm going to just quickly pass these on as I exit and finish my talking. Thank you so much, Ellen, and everyone at Fringe here. All right, guys, thanks.
So, like I said, I'm Ellen. At the Fringe, I do fun things like host these panels, and also in the spring we do workshops on how more like the technical side of the Fringe, as well as Ben Hill hosting town halls, and then office hours. And I just want to introduce our panelists. And so, could you guys let me know your names and the previous Fringe experience that you have, including any awards or accolades that you received?
All right, my name is Tinks, Lovelace. I produced and directed 2 shows at Fringe, one last year called this year, called Shakespeare and Chill, and the previous year called Theatre and Chill. I haven't had any awards, but my mum thinks I'm really special. So there's that.
I'm Jim Hanna. I'm primarily an actor first, so I was in Fringe for 2 years as an actor in 2013-14. I never realized how fun and in a lot of ways easy it is to I say easy, they're very accommodating for new producers at Fringe, so I was like, I'm going to go for it. So I then wrote and produced and acted in a show in 2015. That show did real well. Top of Fringe nomination, top comedy nomination, very excited. Then I took a year off and came back last year and wrote another show, and it was not quite as successful, but it was still very successful, and people came and laughed, and so that's where I am now. I'm always trying to do all of it, write, act, produce, and promote, and all of it, because Fringe is really a great venue for that. So.
I'm Tiffany Cascio, and I did Thanksgiving this year. It was my first experience at Fringe, and it was awesome. I loved it. We got some nominations and a couple awards and Pick of the Fringe, so it was very exciting, intro to Fringe.
Hi, I'm Natasha, Lewin. I was a Fringe audience member for a very long time, and then this year I won the scholarship for my play Chatter, and we won at 1 out of 10 scholarship award winners. So it was my first time writing a play, directing a play, and producing a play. We won the Producers Award, and we won Short and Sweet because it was under 20 minutes.
Awesome. And then how did you guys get involved in theater and playwriting itself, even outside of the Fringe?
Oh, wow. I'm classically trained from London, the Cellar, Adler, New York, and theatre's always just been a part of my life. I think it's a really great platform, and Fringe in particular is such a wonderful location to really learn, experience, grow, but test yourself and find art or theatre that's exciting, it's on the cutting edge. So it was sort of a natural progression for me to find it. I saw the banners all up and down the sunset, and I was wondering what that's all about. And obviously there's the Edinburgh Fringe in Scotland that's so huge. And so it was a very natural progression for me as a creator to want to create my own work in such a loving and caring environment.
Should we just keep moving?
Yeah.
Okay. Again, being an actor first, and that's where all my education and training came in, and what I'm out here trying to do. Way back in college, which was probably about 30 years ago now for me, I started realizing that as an actor, it was always better you get great roles if you write them for yourself. And so I would basically write stuff for me to be in vehicles that I don't know, I'm not castable in it. And first off, when I was 20, I was just this little pipsqueak. I couldn't get any lead in anything anywhere. So I just started writing my own stuff, and then I could create whatever dream role I wanted. And then Fringe had started happening where I was acting in a couple, and they're like, oh, but I would like to do this, and I could write it that way. So I'm not the most prolific writer, but I'm happy to tell you what I do know about writing for Fringe. So.
I was a film major, so I did more like the screenplay side, but then when I moved back to LA, or when I moved out here, I realized like, oh, I can't make my own movies, so I'm gonna go back to writing plays. This is something I can actually like produce and get up, so I started doing short plays. I had a few short plays, and then I was like, okay, I'm ready for like the full-length experience, so that's why I kind of did Fringe.
My professional job as a writer, I write for a production company, so I've written everything from prose to books to screenplays to, I've never written a play. And I always had a play inside me, and I asked for help from friends, and it never happened, and then Fringe came along, and I'm here.
Cool. So more on the creative side, how did you stumble upon your last idea? Or do you have any inspiration you drew from, or was it just something you
Yeah, so my first show, Theatre and Chill, wasn't written by me. It was written by a really great woman named Reagan Kane. And when I opened it, I was really happy with the show, but I felt I hadn't challenged myself creatively as a director. And so immediately I started thinking about how can I challenge myself, right? How can I push myself to be what I really want to do and what I really want to see. And so this idea of Shakespeare and Chill came in. It was a dreamscape to Shakespeare's poetry on love set to a modern day soundtrack of Chet Baker, Banks, Kendrick Lamar, and we had movement singing mine and obviously spoken word. And it sort of just came into my head. It was sat in my head for about a year before I actually sat down to write it. But my creative process is very visual. I sort of sit there. I have to create space for myself, so I sort of go off quietly somewhere, usually in my apartment, because I find it really creative there. And I put on things that inspire me. In particular, music I find incredibly inspirational. And I look at images, and then I just sort of sit back and let my imagination go wild, really. And then from that, the last step for me is always to put it down on paper, because my ideas, they grow. They always evolve, right? It starts off with a tiny little seed, and then it just grows and grows and grows and grows. So yeah, for me, writing is always like the last phase of the show.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's certainly my last phase. I'm not a very disciplined writer in terms of, I don't know how many of you are exclusively writing, this is your main passion, and do the get up and write every day. I don't have that in me. So I said, all I knew that after 2015 having such a great experience, I took a year off, and I knew I wanted to do something for 2017. So it's literally like December or January, and I don't have a play, I just know I'm going to do one. And so I ran through several different ideas, and I always write sort of traditional plays that are, I mean, there's nothing terribly experimental about any of them. They are, what's for lack of a better word, they're just traditional person walks on, it's story plays, but there are satires of something. I always like to write ridiculous satires of something. And I picked the most obscure target. This play can never be done probably ever again because this is already fading from the public consciousness, but I was watching after shows, after like TV shows like The Walking Dead had The Talking Dead, and they became sort of popular. Like, it is the strangest phenomenon that these are now hit shows on their own. And then I actually did one for a web series. I was on this online only after show. I was like, this is even more ridiculous. People are now watching. And I thought, oh, there's a target for some sort of satire. So that's what I ended up doing, a satire. That's where that idea came.
So my play Thanksgiving was based on an actual Thanksgiving. So my brother brought a stripper home for dinner one Thanksgiving, and like.
As his date, or?
No, not his date, but his goal was sort of to like upend Thanksgiving, and he did. So when I was there at the Thanksgiving, I was furious because there was all this like just chaos, and then I remember like this calm came over me. Watching it, like as an outsider, I'm like, this is gonna be my first full-length play. I'm 100% writing this play, it's gonna be amazing. And so then I just sort of started like watching everything, like heightened, like taking notes in my head. And I went home and I was like typing every single, like trying to remember every single thing that she said, and then my mom said, and then everyone said. And so I had like 3 pages, just like no spacing. And then I sort of tried to like chunk away at it and make these characters, and so it kind of evolved from there the whole time, like terrified to let any of my family see it. They did. The end product, yeah.
And the brother?
But he did not make it up.
The stripper?
But I did them justice.
The question is, again?
Just how did you stumble upon your idea for your Fringe show?
So I guess I start with an image, something that I just see. I just saw an image, and I write what I know. I only write really what I know, and what I know is myself. And so I took the image that I'd seen, and I had, I guess, put myself in that image. And kind of the best way I heard someone describe Chatter was that it was a one-person show with a cast. So there was one person who was the main character, but then it was all the voices in her head, all the different beings they come in. So the heavyweight one, the one that's black, the one that's white, the one that's Jewish, the one that's crazy, the one that's got anxiety, and all the things that she's dealing with trying to get out of the house to go to a party. And so I just wrote what I knew. I just know those voices. I knew that dialogue. I knew what kept me in the car and what let me get out of the car to go to a party. What, craziness goes on in our head. And there was a lot of real dialogue that I've had with myself in it. So, I just write what I know. I had an image. I knew I wanted her to look a specific way. I knew that I wanted everybody else to look a specific way because I saw it. And just hit the ground running writing.
Cool. I know that you kind of already started to answer this, but how do you guys get into the mind of your characters? So, are they a reflection of you, of your family members, for you, obviously? Probably. Hopefully.
Yeah, so my characters are me increased or decreased. So I take what I feel is a human and or an experience that I've had, and I will either increase my reaction or a certain feeling inside of me by 100% or decrease it, depending. But yes, it's all versions of my humanity, my human experience, and they sort of come and just play with one another. That's the best way to describe it.
I don't really know. I don't know if this might be one way to get to, like, I don't, again, because I'm not a discipline writer, I think and I think and I think and I ruminate for months and weeks. I almost don't take any notes. I'm just thinking like, and then I just write it in this blinding fury of caffeine and typing. And at that point, I don't know, I want them, I like to primarily, because I mostly do comedies and satires, is take somebody, inflate their self-importance immensely, and then prick their bubble and watch them collapse. And then, but not just talk shit about this character, have something redeeming come out of it afterwards, or some sweet or touching moment at the end of it all. But, and of course, because I'm a selfish actor, I usually write one role in my voice, so that one's pretty easy. So.
For me, writing the real people that are like very close to me was probably like getting inside their minds is the biggest challenge with this play. And I remember I took pieces to like this writing class, and they're like, okay, so you have to just like forget about the truth, because like these are characters now, so whatever like their, you know, whatever your real brother is like, it doesn't matter anymore. It has to serve the character and like their interaction with each other. So I sort of like found a little bit of freedom in that. I kind of separated them out from who the real people were. But I also wanted it to be like this exploration of like the real issues that my family deals with. So, so there was kind of a balance of that, like having the like the experience, like not the experience, but just kind of the issues that we have to kind of work them out in a real way, and it was kind of like therapy. So like there's these issues with the character that's based on myself and my mom, that when I was writing it, I'm like, okay, now I have to be outside of myself, and I have to be in her mind and in this argument that we're having. And so I remember at one point I was like, she's right, I was wrong in that argument. I'm like, seriously, I was such a jerk to my mom, you know. And so it was this whole thing where you're like, oh, you know, which is, you know, what you have to do for all your characters, because you know, to make them well-rounded, you have to put yourself in their mindset. So like whatever they did wrong, what was their viewpoint? So that was kind of that was an emotional journey for me. So that was my therapy for a couple of years.
So one of the best pieces of advice I ever got, writing advice when I started writing scripts, screenplays and stuff, was the character really, you have to have a backstory for that character. It doesn't have to be shown ever, but you should have, because they have to know where they're going, what their motivation is, yada yada. And as a first-time director for Fringe, a first-time film playwright for Fringe, a first-time playwright and director in general, theater, you really have to have a backstory, because they're standing up on stage and they can't just all be looking at something. They all have to be doing something. So you have to write that into the character. What is their motivation? What is each character trying to get at? What is their ultimate goal? And that was, you know, it's a process. And my cast, you know, working with the cast, having a table read was the best way to really kind of pull out what I needed to kind of tweak with my dialogue, or tweak with where they were going, their actions. But yeah, it really comes with a backstory. I say, work on that backstory. What are their motivations? Because once they get up here, you don't want them just looking at each other when they're not talking. You know, when someone else is having a monologue, they have to have some sort of forward-moving motion.
And what kind of techniques and processes do you guys do to keep on schedule? Because Fringe is very specific. We have a specific time when it comes up, and I know that a lot of people are starting the writing process. So how do you keep it going?
Yeah, so I created a schedule for myself the first year I did Fringe, and I just make sure I stick to that. I always give myself a lot more time than I think I'm going to need, because things take so much longer than you think they will. And also to get the best of anything, you want to refine it, cut the fat out of something, right? So when you're creating, or when I'm creating, I want to create that space and allow that time for me to make sure that I am seeing every aspect of it, and I am able to edit down or refine. So I'm pretty old school. I'll print out a calendar from my MacBook and have them, the months leading up to it all on a wall, and I have my deadlines of when things need to get done, and I just make sure I stick to it. But I always give myself twice the amount of time that I think I need.
Yeah, I guess I'm coming at it from both a producer primarily first, in terms of most of the advice I would give anybody. I don't know how many of you are planning to produce your own stuff, or if you're just writing it and having someone else produce. So I wouldn't recommend my writings, scheduling and discipline to anybody. It's just very much like, I've just got to get this done by, usually for me, both shows I've done, I knocked them out in January, and knowing that I had to produce in June. But then from there, as a producer, my brain went into overdrive, which is definitely overscheduled, not overscheduled, overplanned. Like, I started my rehearsals 2.5 months early, because there's, actors in this town, it's so hard to get them all together, it's so hard to find a space. I started my promotions early, I started the rehearsals early, I started networking at the Fringe functions early. I did all of that early, so I can't necessarily apply that to my writing process, because that's kind of an undisciplined mess sometimes. But once it's done, then I'm definitely on the always give yourself more time than you think you'll need, because once you're in production, it's coming at you very fast and furious once Fringe gets started.
So I suck at this, at creating deadlines and sticking to them. This play I had, written scenes and been in love with little portions of dialogue. I did not have a whole play. I did not know how to, I was just sort of lost. And I'm not the type of writer that can, what you're supposed to do is just write the bad first draft, just get to the end and then go back. I cannot do that. I have to be happy with something before I move on. So 2 things that I did that were very, very helpful. There's a group here called Tuesdays at 9. I don't know if anyone knows about it. Yes. So they are a cold reading series in LA. Tuesdays at 9 on Facebook. They will put up plays 5 pieces per night with a musical guest, where they do 10 pages of a play or a movie or whatever. So you submit, and I was like, okay, this is going to be how I'm going to finish Thanksgiving, because I have 25 pages in a row, the first 25 pages, and then a bunch of mess. So I submitted that, and then people liked it and responded to it, and they're like, okay, so what's your next 20 pages? And I was like, okay, here's my next 10, and then I was like, crap, I only have 5 more. And people kept asking me, oh, what happens next? I'm like, I want to know. So it sort of made me okay, I can write 10 more pages, and then I can write 10 more pages. It gave me a goal to submit. So that's literally how I got all of the pages to the end, and then I had a bunch of revising to do after that. But that was how I did it. And then the other thing I will suggest is I met another writer who has the same issue. She's better at this than me. But so we started doing an accountability squad email. So every Friday she'll say here's what I did this week, and here's my goal for next week, and what did you do? And she basically shamed me because I'll she will email at 9 a.m. on Friday, and then I'll email back on Sunday night I did this, But then you start, if you are being held accountable, then you start going oh, I need to have something, or else I'm going to be really embarrassed to send her that email again that I did nothing. So yeah.
So I think it depends on what kind of person you are, regardless of how I do it, because this is what my job is. So sometimes I get a book dropped on me and I have to do it in 2 weeks. But some of the best advice I've ever gotten was if you donate a half hour, just say a half hour a day, 5 days a week, towards sitting in front of your computer, towards turning off your phone, and just focus. You'll find yourself sitting there longer than that half hour, probably 2 times, which is great, because then you're there for an hour, then you're there for 45 minutes, but you're just completely focused on that piece of work. Half hour, 20 minutes, I do an hour if I get really stuck, but I think just holding yourself accountable by giving yourself small little doses. 20 minutes, great. Also, again, having somebody hold it accountable. I always have my mom read my stuff. My mom reads everything I write. And she gives great notes. And so she holds me accountable. How's it going? What's going on? Where are you in this? So if you have somebody who you trust and love, like you said, I think that, holding yourself and having someone else.
Yeah. And then, so on that topic too, when do you start inviting other people to be a part of your creative process? So when you start sending people stuff and when you ask for feedback too, this is kind of two separate things.
It depends on the show. Shakespeare in Chill to me was very me, and it was my voice completely, so I sort of protected that because I didn't want any other influences to come in with it. So I only invited people. I knew who I wanted to collaborate with from the beginning, so I wrote things specifically for people. I knew the space and all of that, but in terms of sharing the script, people signed on and they didn't know what they were signing on for. So I'm very grateful for my group of collaborators. With the show that I'm doing for the upcoming Fringe, it's a different vibe. It's not specifically my human experience. I'm sharing it with one of my assistants, my writing partners. So with that, I needed her on board straight away because we're talking about race and I'm a white woman, and I needed her point of view. So that she came on board with that one straight away. So yeah, it really depends on the show, the theme, and a lot of other things.
That's an interesting dilemma that I'm actually I can sort of say that in 2015 when I had a show that did really well, there were 5 characters in it, and afterwards, one of the takeaways was, Jim, your male characters are all much more interesting and funny than your female characters. I'm like, that sounds about right. And it wasn't intentional, it's just kind of I wrote more interesting male characters. And so I made a specific effort this time to I'm going to make the more interesting characters in this play women. But then you get into that nervousness of, can I do that? Can I speak in that voice? And I will be honest, both my plays, it could have been played by a multiracial cast, but they weren't. They were all white people. And yeah. But sometimes, because there is an interesting debate when you get into that, how dare I presume I could write for a different community that I'm like, you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So I tentatively took steps with that, doing the male-female thing this year. And in terms of getting feedback along the way, well, I wrote it in my head the way I wanted it written, and then I started sharing with the people I wanted to be in it, including the 3 women I wanted to be in it. And they're the ones who I was checking in with constantly. Is that something a woman would actually say? They'd go, yes or no, that's really stupid. And I wasn't quite that needy about it, but I was definitely accepting, hey, if I'm got a tin ear about this, please tell me. So I collaborate more in the process of rehearsal is the short answer after a very long answer.
I would say for an ensemble show, as soon as you have a draft, get it in the hands of actors. You don't have to ask for feedback. It doesn't have to be the actors that are going to play it. But, if you have a writing group, I'm part of a writing group called Working Title, or just friends or whatever. I had an informal read at a friend's house where actors just read the play so that I could hear it, because my play had 6 characters, and that's 6 voices in your head that you're trying to, distinguish when you're writing. And then for my play, most of the play, they're all on stage the whole time. And so it's hard to balance, are they just lost in this? Is this person talking, too much? Or, so just to help you in writing it, just to kind of hear different people have the different voices, that's great. And then if you have trusted actors, I would ask them feedback on their characters only. So, because sometimes it's a little challenging dealing with feedback when you're kind of in the mushy stage when it's not already, because people are like, what if this happened, or what, hey, this, and you're like, wait, no, I can't. But if you have good actors that they'll actually provide really interesting feedback for you on their specific character. I didn't understand why I said this. This didn't seem like it was coming from me. And so then you take that yourself and say, oh, okay, I didn't build in this much. I didn't build in this early on. So that would be my advice, is to just get in the hands of actors.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Like I said, table reads are really important, but I feel that there's no such thing as a bad first draft. I feel like you finished it. It's great. It's fantastic. Now let people read it so you can decompress. And then you kind of give yourself some time to get away from it. And then when people come back with all their criticisms that you hate, you can pick and choose the ones that you want, you know? I think you need a little bit of time away from it. So as soon as you finish that first draft, I say it's a crucial time to pass it out and let other people read it. And you don't have to take any of their criticism, but it gives you a little bit of a buffer before you just go back and start with a red pen.
Here, just one other thing with that too is that if you have, if you have actors who are other than friends too, these may be people that you want to be in the play, right? You like with Tuesdays at 9, I ended up working with actors that read on stage for that piece. So it's like it kind of benefits you in that way. And then also when I kind of responded to the way a certain character read it, I was like, okay, now you're in my brain for this role, and so now I can like physically see this person. Would they say this? You can kind of that helps too. You can kind of visualize these people instead of just having these like random voices, and then write to them.
And Fringe is awesome, I think, for that, because both of my plays, as soon as they were finished, I was able to sit back and go, oh, that doesn't work, and that doesn't work. And if I were to redo this tomorrow, I would change this. But I guess it's not a way of saying like, don't worry if it's not a finished product, but in some ways I think there's some value in that. Like, don't be too afraid that, is this gonna work? This is a big risk. This choice I'm making here might not fly, it might not land. Well, Fringe is the perfect place to give that a shot, because then it could, and then you've got a great moment or a great instant. But also, Fringe is awesome for experimenting that way, because then I think all of us, if we went back and rewrote, maybe some of us have even, what we already wrote, we now know from this awesome Fringe experience what was working and what wasn't. Just don't try to get it, to my mind, don't try to get it perfect before you go into production for Fringe, because it's a perfect place to play around. So.
Yeah, I think so. And then with workshops, do you guys typically do it in front of an audience, or do you try and do like your first reading in private? How do you guys typically do that?
I do it with my people, I suppose with the people, my actors or my creators. I give it to them and I'm like, tell me what's up, because I've been sat with it for too long now. It's now your piece just as much as it is mine. So I don't really do an audience, no, because especially because the Shakespeare and Chill was a dreamscape, so it wasn't a sort of typical show format. I didn't do a workshop with that. It had its own sort of process of giving it to the performers and then asking them, does this make sense to you? Is there a story here? And just really asking for their honesty and their openness, and hoping that will come, and it did. Yeah,
and I tend not to do a public workshop of anything either. One is I've been in LA as an actor for 20 whatever years. I'm so tired of being asked to read my friends' plays and screenplays when I go to their house, and I just feel like I'm imposing on anyone I would ask, come read my, you want to hear it's a first draft of my play? Now, I'm not saying you should do that, because it just might be me and my group of friends, but I basically picked the cast I wanted to do it, we read it, and we did it sort of privately. I guess private is the answer, not necessarily the answer for everyone. That's just me.
I did every one of it except my play for any sort of workshop, anything. I was like, let's do this. I want to finish this thing and I need help. So yeah, I did Tuesdays at 9. I brought to like my private reading group. I have friends, anywhere. I did it all.
And a plug for Tuesdays at 9. I don't do it. I used to do it years ago. As an actor, I would just go into things to get up and read. A friend of mine just finished his movie that he was workshopping there like 4 years ago. So if you've never heard of it, that is a place to go and workshop your stuff.
What was the question? I'm sorry.
If you are doing workshops or you are doing readings, you do it in public, in private, how do you like it?
We didn't do a reading nothing happened until we put the play up. The first time we, read it together was a table read after I'd hired everybody, just in my house and food and just getting everybody loose, because it's kind of their first time meeting too. So it was their first time, it was a kind of. Remember that. And just want to make it comfortable for everybody, because you want everyone to bring their best self to the table. Obviously, that's why you hired them for the role. Like you said, the cast really, I always say this was my first time directing, but they really directed it with me. They got really into it and really appreciated their roles. It was very, meaty for them. They were also wonderful. I just was really blessed, and I think they were blessed too. I think they really got something out of the experience. So it was nice to, make us a family as quick as I could, that there's no, everybody here is on the same level, everyone here is on the same plane. I'll never poo-poo an idea, please, let's talk about it. I also sat down with each of the people individually, each of the cast members individually, and talked to them about, what was going on in their life and what was going on with, anything that's going on with them, and then also how we can parlay that into the role. And I think that was even more than just being a director, just being a friend, being a good person that cares about these characters, cares about these people outside of the characters, the actors, and I think the best was creating that relationship, because then we could really make good theater.
Cool. As far as like your show itself, everybody wears like different hats during the Fringe, and everybody's doing everything. But did you all write, and then did you direct? Did you act in your show? And how did that balance come through with producing as well?
Yeah, so I wrote, directed, produced, and acted in it.
Wow.
Which is
exhausting.
Wow.
Do you recommend it?
We know the answer to this.
It's tough. Yes, I learned so much, but also ask for help, you guys. When luckily this year I actually had an assistant producer on it with me, so that was amazing. She did a lot of stuff. I suppose the thing I like the most is directing, because it's your vision, right? So you can really be you. Secondary then is performing, because you get to see what your vision is, how people are receiving your vision. Producing wise, that's the tough part for me, because it's not creative, it's problem solving. So that was really, really hard. I don't necessarily like it, but because I don't like it, I made sure that I had to be really fucking good at it. Because if you don't, that's what that producing is what takes an idea from in here and puts it on stage, right? So if you want someone to see it, you have to be good at it, and you have to get there early. Shout about your idea, even though it might not be very good. Shout it out, look what I'm doing over here, But yeah, I definitely did it all, and it was rough. Writing was really fun. This was the first time I did it, and it was really fun. It really, really was. Yeah.
I also tried to do everything, not in the first one, I didn't direct that one. This one I did direct. There were pluses and minuses to both, but, and producing wise, I don't know, maybe it's because I've lived my life just like, I'm a creative type, I'm only creative, and that's where my passion and my skills seem to lie. I enjoyed the producing part of it sometimes, because I'd be like, I don't know how to do this, but like a person learning to pay their taxes, or like someone who doesn't know anything practical ever, and suddenly I got all these practical things I have to do, like, where do I get postcards? So I enjoyed the challenge of that. I'm not necessarily all good at it, but I enjoyed the challenge of it.
So I had a director, and I did not act in it, but my co-producer role was all encompassing. I mean, you literally do everything. You're like, I'm producing this, even if you have a separate producer, like, you have to just be prepared to, just do everything, because it has to get done. Like, I literally made mashed potatoes and stuffing before every show, and, bought all the food props, and, figured out how to make a playbill, and did, the graphics, and did, so it's, you do everything. But it's fun, and you get to see, every aspect of it.
Yeah. This is my first time again directing and producing. I had a co-producer that I brought in because I was just like, this is a lot for me, but she was also acting in the play. I don't regret it. I don't regret any of it. I will never direct again. I'll never direct again. It's not for me. I like to just turn it in and go. But I don't regret any of it. I'm really glad I did it. The one thing that I don't have any social media in my personal life, and I hired a social media manager, and 2 weeks in or something like that, he moved back to Tennessee, and so I ended up doing social media, and I didn't realize how that is a lot with the Fringe. There's a lot of putting yourself out there and making sure your picture gets, not your picture, but your postcard.
Your social was everywhere. It
Yes,
really was.
thank you.
Yeah.
That was me, and as the day it ended, I deleted all the pictures.
Done.
I couldn't, but I really grew this year. This was growing year for me. I really learned a lot about myself directing and producing and doing social media, and I highly recommend that if you think you have that capacity, to just go for it.
Yeah.
Because it is worth it. It's so much fun. It was so much fun. It is exhausting, but you really grew.
And then with your collaborators that you did have, say actors or a co-producer or a director, how did you meet these people? How did you make these connections? And how do you ask them to do something like The Fringe?
Just human beings in my life that I love, really, and I want to hang out with. Do you want to come and do this thing with me? And yeah, as I said before, I specifically write things for people, and any type of shows, and the Fringe environment really asks or creates this very community-based feeling, and so that's how I work as a creator. And I like to give ownership over to people as well. So my choreographer, I've worked with her for a while now and things, and I'm just like, this is my idea, but you give me what you want, you know? And yeah, all of my cast, I don't even do auditions. I'm not really, because I've sat on the other side of that and don't like it, I know who I want in things, I know who I want to work with, I know who I want in my shows, and I'm really happy that they also want to be in my shows too.
I do it the same way. I'm maybe not much more different insight than that, much different. I ask my actor friends that I'd like to be doing stuff with, and I don't have auditions. I've been meaning to do a play with this funny person for a long time. I pick my funny friends that I want to do a play with, and other than that, I don't have a lot of other collaborators in terms of. It's part of doing everything. I do the sound design by myself, which I didn't know a lot about, and I learned the basics, and social media by myself. Not by myself, but I figured out how to do it as a producer. Anyway, mostly it's my actor friends that are funny that I want to hang out with.
I met my director. She directed a 10-minute piece I did for this group called Playground LA, and we've been kind of friends ever since. And she runs this writing group that I'm part of. So I knew that I wanted her to direct it because I've worked with probably like 7 or 8 directors in town, and I just felt a real connection with her. And when I first reached out to her, she was like, if I can do it, maybe you want to reach out to other people. I'm like, no, I'll wait. So we waited until like way too long, and then she's like, I can do it. And then the actors I met through like Playground LA, and Tuesdays at 9. And then we held auditions for 2 of the roles, which was a very interesting experience. It is like I don't know, I feel totally guilty. I just have so much empathy for people who come in for their 5-minute thing. Like I could never do that. And then you only pick one person.
It's the
you
call
see
that's
like
how they know that I can't
you
stand
see like 25 people for and but the cool thing is that I kind of like opened up my world of actors that I really like and want to work with, and so I've seen some of them since, and I kind of have like little roles in my head, and now they're people that I want to work with. Maybe they weren't right for that role, but so don't be afraid to do that too. There's a nice way to do auditions.
Yeah. How did you post for your auditions? Did you just
backstage, I think, and then I think one other place. And we also reached out. So we had the actors that we had already got on board reached out to friends and the director, and we kind of did it that way too.
So there were some actors who were strangers to you before you started rolling?
And ended up only being one that I didn't know, but we held auditions for 2 of the roles.
Yeah, so just to hop on,
2.
I do ask some of my friends to put themselves on tape, so I do know that they're able to do it, and especially with singing and movement. That I'll ask them to sing the songs that I've asked them to do, just so it's sort of like that friendly way of being like, just want to make sure you can do this.
Yeah. I held audition. I went big. I went big. I figured this was probably the only play I was ever going to write. I won the scholarship. I was super honored. I had seen a bunch of Fringe shows before. I'm still super honored. I've seen a bunch of Fringe shows before. I've been to a lot of theater. I'm not a theater writer again, so I was like, I'm going to go big. I held auditions. I paid my actors. I made sure they were fed every day. If anyone had a problem, I would pay for their gas. I would do whatever. The box office went to them. I really put my all into it. I really put my all into it and into them, and it came back, you know, tenfold. I mean, we got amazing performances, amazing turnouts, sold out every show, and it was because, you know, I really wanted to see this made. I really wanted to see it done right. I went to all the workshops. I went to every single workshop. I met as many people as I could, and I just really put my nose to the grindstone and went big. Went big with it. Yeah.
And just to let you guys know, as far as what the scholarship program is, it's a program through the Hollywood Fringe Festival, us. And we have a panel of, this year's going to be past Fringe participants, past scholarship winners, as well as LA theater and arts professionals that choose out of, we got 150 applications, like a million applications last year, and they boiled down to 10 winners. And they get help with production costs as well as free registration and a Fringe mentor to help out. And it's a diversity scholarship. It's meant for people who don't have a voice in theater to be able to have that. And you can read all about it at hollywoodfringe.org/scholarships. Just wanted to put that in.
Good luck.
And as far as kind of bringing this all back to the Fringe, how does the Fringe fit into your development process? Because usually a development process can be different, but the Fringe has these other little aspects, like you're saying, you're like, you have to do everything.
Yeah.
You have to produce it, you have to sell your tickets, you have to book your venue. So how does that kind of fit into your development process, and how does it make it different for you creatively?
Yeah, it's big knowing that what you're going to be producing and creating for, right? Because it gives you specificity. It allows you to make sure that you're on point with things. So Fringe, I knew my venue before I even wrote my show. I knew that it was going to be at 3 clubs, so I had this ability. Like, I wouldn't have done a Dreamscape in a regular proscenium arch theatre. It's not going to work. Not the way I do it anyway. So I knew my venue. I also knew that Fringe really celebrates people who take risks with visuals or creatively, anything. So I knew that I could take this risk and it would be okay, just personally with my voice and where I was as an artist. So that was great. I was like, oh, Fringe is forgiving. It's okay if you don't have everything beautifully, you know.
Fringe is forgiving is a good,
It
good takeaway.
If you don't have everything ironed out perfectly, it's okay, because you also can, the next night, it will get better and better and better. But yeah, in terms of knowing that with Fringe you are wearing multiple hats, there is the that's going to change your development process. So I had more actors probably than I would have liked to have, because I wanted to sell out more seats, right? And I had actors from different social groups, because if you hire all friends, then they're not always going to they're not going to be able to fill all the seats. I had people that were really, like my assistant producer, she's a very charismatic woman, so she would plug the show fine, and you need that in order to be successful, you need that. So if I could have done the Dreamscape, I probably would have only had 2 or 3 people doing it, because it's easier to schedule 2 or 3 humans to be in the same room at the same time. But because I needed X amount of seats to be sold every night as a producer, right, I had to be like, no, creative, you have to have minimum 8 people in your show. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a tough call, because solo shows sometimes you feel like you feel bad for these people who might pick too big of a space, because they have their friends group to promote to and to get to come. But then if you get too big of a cast, then you can't get a single rehearsal schedule. I had 5 people, and we barely got enough rehearsals in with all 5 together. So that's a separate, I suppose, scheduling thing. I'm just curious if anyone's experience, does anyone, or maybe any of you, does anyone use Fringe for just, I wrote a play, I want to hand it off and let them all handle it? Because it does seem most of the people I know doing Fringe do it the other way, but I would imagine that would be a thing where you just go like, I'm a writer, that's what I do.
Yeah.
I think all of us, it seems to some extent, we're wearing all the hats, but I don't think that's the only way to do Fringe. If you do, though, some of the stuff that everyone's been talking about is definitely true. And it will probably help your play development as well, I think, because in production, you're there every day going, oh, I have to get mashed potatoes and stuffing every night, because the writer put it in there, you know, so that's also
Yeah,
me.
I regret it.
So like no props, yeah. No props and no food.
I don't have a whole word. That was just, yeah, it's just insanely invigorating and fun and gratifying.
For me, I had submitted this play to other places and been rejected. Like we do, like happens always. Because they're like, this is just not right for what we're looking for at this time or whatever. And so for Fringe, it was like, I can produce this can happen on a stage and people can see it. So it's sort of like, it's Fringe made it possible. And the thing I'll say about the development process, like knowing that it was now a Fringe play, because up until we were like at our, second table read, I was still rewriting. One thing that made me, like, knowing that these actors are going to work for very little money, and they're going to be these, great actors, people that I wanted to bring in, I really took the time to look through each role and say, is this something that someone will be excited to play? And like really make sure that each role, even like the smallest role, I was like, okay, I need to make sure that this has enough like juicy stuff in it that they're going to be excited about it and show up, and like this is going to be good for them too. This is going to give them an opportunity to showcase, a certain aspect of their, talent. So that I think is important when you're doing an ensemble show like this or Fringe.
I agree. I just don't remember the question.
How did Fringe fit into your development process? How did it differ from a normal creative process for you?
Into my development process. Okay, well, once I saw the place where we were having our show, like the theater, the place where we were having the theater, I in my head I was like, okay, I can get rid of that. I'm not going to have that. I don't want that there. I know that I only have this long to get these people in and those people out, so that's going. And I just started paring away things that weren't necessary to make it so seamless, because I am a stressed person. Stress and me do not get along very well. So if I'm stressed, it's going to trickle down to my cast, to my producers, to the audience, to everybody. So I was like, what is going to be easiest for me? Okay, we're going to make this as simple as possible, and I just started paring things down. The more that I would go to workshops and I would hear someone talk about, even getting postcards. I got postcards done immediately. I got, whatever I could do to get things off my back, because I just know I stress out. And it was the best thing I could do. So getting into my venue, seeing what my venue was, meeting the stage manager, and just, being bottles of vodka when stage manager and you stuff is great. Like we had the best stage manager. I give her a bottle of vodka every time we had a show, and never had a problem, never had anything, never anything go wrong.
Definitely grease the palms of your
Yeah,
stage
grease the
manager.
palms. Yeah, you are happy to have them there. But I mean, just what I could see that I could just start making really easy. And like I keep looking up, because I remember looking at our black box theater and being like, okay, no, we don't need anything. We're just going to have a couple props here and there, and everyone will know where their props are. And made it super simple.
Yeah, there are a few like tips and tricks to Fringe shows in particular, like minimal props, right? Minimal staging, because you've got to flip it in 15 minutes. So you can't. I remember my first year, I had like a stage door, and I had like these sort of abstract bushes and a table and chairs, and it was all beige and white. And I was like, God, I hate you, bush. Like I hate you. So yeah, don't have anything on stage. Use your characters if you want to create a beautiful stage picture. Use the costumes, use the character, use the human. Minimal props. Lighting design, you can't do crazy lighting design because
it's a fixed plot in every space.
Yeah, you're using multiple shows will be in the same venue, so figure that out. Like, don't go crazy with that. Also, tech sometimes. I remember Shakespeare and Chill, we had the same tech guy for like 2-3 shows, and then he booked a really big gig and he left.
No.
And so I had to like reteach a whole tech guy, and I've got music, I'm music heavy and everything, and I was like, we had 15 minutes to teach him the whole show. 15 minutes to teach, he did amazing. He only messed up once, and I was like, oh my
That's
God,
great.
I love you. But yeah, don't go crazy with that stuff either, because it's rough. If someone if it doesn't work one day, it might happen because there's so many shows and the venues do their best, but there's so many things going on.
I mean, and to piggyback off that is, you guys are here for writers. It's the story. You don't keep your story, your characters moving, the dialogue happening, or not dialogue. You don't have to have dialogue. Just keep everything moving. And if you're not directing it or producing it or whatever, but just remember that space, time, lighting, all of that is money.
Yeah, it's money.
It's really money
And
in Fringe.
It takes away from what's really
Yeah.
important, which is what's going on between the two human beings on
Yeah.
stage, right? That's
Yeah.
it. So just get that down.
Yeah.
And as a strictly practical thing, it would seem if you're writing a play with a bunch of different sets and sceneries, and I'm going to go from the office to my bedroom to the hall, you really can't unless that's part of the convention of what you're doing, that you're just doing with lights maybe. But I make that very simple. Mine's always in one location. It all happens there, and then everything, echoing everything Dave said. Not too many props, not too many, because also you have to drive it to the theater every night in your car and load it in about 15 minutes when the other show is out. So, your yacht set that you wanted to bring on is not going to go over too well when it's in the back of your Hyundai.
And then you want to hang out afterwards,
Yes.
right? And grab a beer in the bar, and then you've got this massive bag of props, and you're like, excuse me, could I just put up my clowns behind there, please?
And parking's not easy.
Yeah.
Yes. You might be 5 blocks from your space. So.
Yeah.
Do you have any last minute tips or anyone, like new writers in the Fringe?
Oh.
I don't know if I called you out.
I don't, guys, sorry. I would just say go to the events and meet people and ask a ton of questions. Like when I had no idea what I was doing, and when we first met, we did the run through at the venue, or it was like the orientation. I had to go by myself because the director and co-producer couldn't make it, and I didn't know what they were talking about. If I'm being perfectly honest, and I was just sort of like, I'm gonna write that down. And I just did. I was like, hey, theater rookie, Fringe rookie, I don't know what I'm doing, and you just ask questions, and it is like, LA is not always like this, but with the Fringe, it is like people are like, come and I will help you, and I did this too, and like they say the whole friendship thing, like that is real, 100%. It's just like this community of people that are like, oh my god, I've been there, let me help you with my advice. So just go to all the events and ask.
I mean, you're later, you're on a panel.
I know, this is
no
crazy.
man
I
last
know,
year.
this is insane.
Last
For me giving advice, but yeah, it's just because people were like, come into my
Exactly.
world and I will help you and give you my advice. So.
And
yes.
as the Fringe, we do provide these resources for you. So we have our spring panels, which are about money and promotion. We have a venue panel, that'll be the first one. All these different aspects. We have town halls where our festival director just yells things at you, do all these things, and then everybody's writing furiously. And then not only that, there's all these wonderful participants that you'll meet at all of these. We always have a mixer afterwards. We're having one after today. You can always ask any questions to anyone, and they'll always
Drinking
try and
about
find it.
Fringe.
They'll try and find you an answer. They might not have it, but they'll try and find it for you.
Yeah, totally. If you guys have any questions or anything, hit me up. I'm on Instagram. Bag of Bones is my company, and I'll sit down and chat with you about whatever it is you want to talk about.
Yes, I have to go right away, but when we're done with Jim Hanna through the Fringe site, you can message me there too. I'm happy to help.
Well, I think we should actually open it up to a few questions. If
Yeah.
people have any questions that they want to ask specifically to this panel.
Hi. I've heard a couple people mention tonight that they rewrote their script when they realized what venue they'd be performing in. How soon do you find out what venue you're in?
You can book it whenever.
Well,
there's
literally, not till February
literally,
1 or-
there's a date, but people you can start looking at venues as Matt said earlier, and as Jen can speak a little bit to this.
That's right, that's the question.
About how soon can you figure out what venue you're going to be?
Yeah, it depends on the venue. We have already had quite a few inquiries for here, and I had to say, wait a second, let me breathe for a minute. I was making inquiries in July, so I was like, wait till January. But certainly, I'm super happy to give tours and talk to people and answer all kinds of questions.
Yeah, I would say
It's fine.
go and see a show in a venue that you think
Yeah.
that you want to use, right? Because then you can see how they've used that space, and maybe you might want to use it in the same way, you might want to use it differently. And
So my question is, you chase down the space?
Yeah,
Pretty
You
much.
go get it.
you kind of know where or what you want to do
Okay.
and find
And you
out.
can visit more than one venue.
Yeah.
Go to, Matt
Sure.
runs 6 spaces, Monica runs 800 spaces over the continent. visit more than one, and you go, oh, this could work. Or
Yeah.
And there's a list of Fringe venues on the Fringe site that are all within the Fringe zone. So yeah, I mean, like we will give tours, and then people will say, "Great, I'm gonna go see 6 other venues, and then I'll call you." You know, so. But the first thing I always ask people is, "Tell me about your show," and then I try to talk to them about how to use this space for that particular show. So it's always something you want in mind when you're looking at venues.
And in January, we'll have an in-depth panel about
Yeah.
how to do that. So if you have those, yeah, we can.
I think literally you can't book a venue until February 1st before the Fringe or something
Right,
like that.
there's like, like.
You could visit, I suppose.
Yeah, you can visit and people start reserving it.
I have to see my meter, I'll be right back.
Sure.
Is there anyone else? 'Cause
Yeah, we know, we've all been, you guys.
Yeah.
Melissa went?
Is
Yeah.
this-
She
Melissa-
was plugging our meters for us.
Oh, really?
If you gotta go, go. Don't get a ticket for that.
Do we have any other questions about the writing process, about
I
Fringe?
do have a question about the writing process, because when you write a play, do you prefer to have a clear plan on where the play's going and then fill in the blanks, or do you sometimes write without knowing where it's going, or do you mix the two in one editions?
Well, traditionally, you have to have a beginning, a middle, and an end, right? There are the basics of writing. So you know that you have to have some conflict and some capacity, right? So I know that I want that, but I don't always know where I'm going with it. So I just let it go wherever it wants to go. I don't get to, and that's why I like to have a lot of time, because I don't want to muscle it into anything that it's not supposed to be, right? So I let it sit and speak to me and create space for it and just let it breathe.
That sort of advice I've heard of, like, you don't have to necessarily know where it's going. I have found that just for me as a discipline matter, all that ruminating I was telling you that I do, I'm usually thinking like, what's it gonna end at? Where is it going at the end? And what's a nice thing in the middle? And then allow it to roam free in between there, but I also, just for myself, can't motivate myself to start writing until I've tried it before, like, well, I know how I want it to start, but I'll just start writing and the ending will come to me. And for me personally, that doesn't work. It doesn't work for me. So I usually need to know a little bit of structure, and then, but then obviously don't be afraid to let it roam wherever it wants in between.
So I'm bad at outlining and structure and all of that. I'm like, I don't do any of the things that you're supposed to do. Like, I literally wrote Thanksgiving like kind of 10 pages at a time. You have like these loose ideas of where you want it to go, but for me, like, dialogue is really exciting, and these relationships. So I have like characters in my head, and then I kind of build these conversations, and then as I'm, like you were talking about, like, you sit down for 20 minutes and then you kind of keep going. That's kind of how I do it too. And then I'll think of, like, in the shower, usually I'll think of like, oh, and then this is gonna happen, and I start building that conversation, and then it leads to scenes. So it takes probably way longer than it should. So I don't know if it's good advice, but that's what I think.
I follow time, right? So I know that for a Fringe show, it depends on how long you want to go. You have an hour technically, then you got turned around in 15 minutes. I knew I wanted mine to be short, so I followed TV format. So I knew if I had 22 minutes, say 22 pages, I knew on page 2, I had to move my character ahead. They were going to be doing something that was going to move the character ahead. So I just followed that kind of format by the time. So with Fringe, it's great because if you're going to do an hour, 45 minutes, whatever, you're locked in with your time so that you know if you're doing an hour by page 5, that character should be making that decision for whatever's going to play on for the rest of the story, right? So I go with time.
And maybe if you don't know that about Fringe, like most shows are 60 minutes or under. If you're writing a 2-act, 2-hour play, you can do it here. You can get the venue and pay the extra rent for the venue. You may not get as many people to come because the Fringe model ends up being as an audience goer. I'm going to see this 45-minute show, and I'm going to run across here and see his half-hour solo show, and then this 1-hour show. So whatever you're working on, it should probably be 60 minutes or less.
No, I very rarely saw a 60-minute show. It just didn't happen as much, you know? Well, like,
Mine was 90 minutes, and I didn't.
Wow.
Yeah, and here's the thing though, I didn't know the rules of Fringe. Like, I just had this 90-minute play, so I was like, oh, I'm gonna produce it.
And she did really well with it.
And
So
yeah,
there
so
are no rules apparently.
You can't, but they were like, it's gotta be under, like, you can't go over, you have to, you have your like 15 minutes. So I had like a 2-hour block, and then you have like 15 minutes before and 15 minutes after, and they're like, every single like person ever said like, you better make sure that you time out that play, because if it's 1 minute over, people will walk, and like, I guess that's a real thing.
They
Like,
will.
if it's like, and I had a friend who had a 60-minute play, and it ran 65, and people left. They were like, So,
Yeah, if you
Not to be
that,
If you have tickets afterwards,
Yeah.
we don't hold the door first, you know?
yeah,
There's
it's like a real thing,
They
so.
can't because they have to get people in and out.
They start on time too, there's no LA late in
Yeah.
Fringe. They start at 5 as their curtains
Such a
are.
good.
Yeah, I would say short is always 3.
Yes, it is,
Right.
especially Fringe.
Yeah.
I was doing the play, and the stage manager said, your play is, you're supposed to come in 10 minutes, right? I said, yeah. So I didn't ask her to, she went right in to the theater and stopped.
Wow.
At
the
Fringe or
show.
somewhere else?
That was what?
At Fringe or somewhere else?
At Fringe.
Oh, wow.
She stopped the show, just stopped it,
Yep.
like 5 minutes before the end.
Yeah, and in New York Fringe, they have in their contract that you go over your listed time, even by a minute. The house manager is like standing at the door, ready to turn on the house light. So you are out at that set time. So
Wow.
no, we're not that crazy, and actually it does depend on the venue. We're not that crazy in this venue, but we will say if you're 5 minutes over, we'll stop the show. Because we have another show and another audience loading in 15 minutes, so it has to happen.
Which isn't
So
a bad
it's just
thing.
something to keep in mind for Fringe.
This wasn't the venue, this was my very meek and mild-mannered stage manager said, oh, okay.
That's the rule of
And then
Fringe.
she went in and did it.
Yep.
It'll tighten your writing up though, that's for
Yeah.
sure.
Sure will. They'll never make that mistake again.
And the director, sometimes I just go, we're at 62 minutes, I'm not cutting any lines, let's get it to 59, and we just pick up the pace, because then, also I think brisk, well-paced shows do much better at Fringe than long
Oh, for sure.
things. They do better everywhere. Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. And then you.
I had a very quick question about promoting your shows. Is that primarily through social media? Do you do anything else, like, or is it all just like Facebook, Plus, and Instagram, and all that one?
Oh, there's so many.
I think social media is like the biggest thing. People do postcards. I actually got to go on the radio, which was terrifying. I don't know if anyone heard it. But the good thing about writing an ensemble show is that you have like a bunch of people in your cast that they'll all promote it too.
Yeah.
Nothing else seems to be terribly effective to me in my experience, because I've tried, maybe I've done like I mean, you can do a lot, like you can buy an ad in the program, which I think everybody should do, even if it's a small one, just because, but.
Or online ads.
Or, yeah, the online ads. But in terms of like, I've been doing theater for a long time in this town, and the old things that you used to be able to do, like, I don't know, you put an ad in the LA Weekly. Well, there's no LA Weekly anymore, or get a listing in the LA Times. They don't do theater listings anymore. So it seems to me social media is about it. I mean, postcards are essential. You hand them out from the minute.
Go to
one.
every event.
Go to every event and
and
hand out
talk
your
to
postcard.
people.
Including the event, all about this. We have like a 90-minute panel about this,
About
about money
promotion.
and promotion, as well as the town hall about it. And we have shows just like this come and share their experiences. And you
No,
wanna share
yeah,
yours?
just like it needs a life online, right? So it's a thing that's in real life and it needs a life online. Everything does now. So I always like to create little video content for my shows and push that definitely through social media. There's really no other form of it anymore, really. I had my assistant producer, she's amazing on Twitter, so I can't stand Twitter or Facebook. I don't have it, but she's just like on it constantly, which is great. There was one other point. Be nice to people when you're talking to them. Right, tell them about your show and hear about their show. Go and see their show. But just be like a genuinely real human.
My favorite thing that we've always done, and my producing company has always produced at Fringe, we paper our preview. We absolutely pack our preview. It is sold out, but we do like a gimmick price that's next to nothing. So we had 3 years in a row where we did a show called 25 Plays Per Hour. It was 25 teeny tiny plays in 1 hour. And for preview, they were 25-cent tickets. So we made like $3, but we got all the right people there. We made a big deal of like 25-cent tickets, and then it sold out the rest of the run because people saw that, they loved the show, they talked it up, so it's just really all about getting people to those early shows. It's super, super
Yeah.
important.
That's getting into promotions a bit, I suppose.
It's
but,
getting into promotion. We'll stop.
but it is absolutely true.
Yeah.
Do a preview and give the tickets away, basically. Because if you get a full house for that, they're all going to go talk about it.
Yeah, I have a question about whether Fringe is the right venue for a musical production. I mean, I've been told by some music producers, try Fringe.
It is actually. I don't
Yeah,
know anything about
talk to Fringe.
But it becomes grander and bigger in 2 hours, and I don't know, is there a...
We did a 90-minute production of a show called The Spidey Project here last year. It was my company. It was a Spider-Man musical. It's 90 minutes, 9 full songs. We had a full band. It sold out in the first week of Fringe, and it was a huge hit. So yeah, musicals are awesome.
The last 2 shows that won top of Fringe
We're
in a
both
row.
musicals.
Both
Yeah.
musicals. It's a really great venue for musicals.
You just can't do the full like 2 hour.
Yeah.
No, you can.
90
obviously.
minutes, it sounds like it.
Well, 90. She said
You
it
can-
worked
you
really
can-
well,
you can-
especially for a musical. You could probably
Whatever
get.
you want.
And we've seen 60-minute musicals. You know, you don't have to. It's a non-traditional thing, and as long as you can work out with your venue about what you're bringing in and put in your budget, you can do anything.
Yes, you really can.
It's awesome.
Yeah, I don't do I don't know how to write a musical. I don't write music, but musicals are usually the buzziest shows at Fringe.
Okay.
Any other questions about the writing process? About the yeah.
So I know that you write for a living. What about the rest of you? Or was it something you just kind of did on the side, or?
I don't write for a living, but it's part of my creative process as an artist, yeah. So I write poetry constantly. I just put Shakespeare in places, so yeah, I couldn't really say I wrote it, but I did, I suppose.
I'm an actor, and I'm very fortunate that that's how I'm making my living, and I do the writing because of what I said earlier. It gives me a chance to, well, one, exercise a different part of my brain, but to do the stuff on stage that I don't get a chance to do when I'm begging for a job from somebody else. So.
I'm a television producer for like doc shows. So I do writing for those shows. Like I've written for like a documentary show and then home improvement shows, voiceover, and like that kind of things. It's very, very different. But yeah, most of my career writing is just after hours.
It's possible.
Like everyone, yeah, like everyone in LA.
I have time for one more.
So now that last year or this year that your plays are done here, where are they going from here? Was that okay, one done, or is it moving on to new venues, to other fringes? What's your plan?
Well, I took some parts of mine and put it in a video format because I wanted to have more of a life. You know, you work on a visual for so long, you spend so long creating it, coming up with it, you wanted to push it as far as it can go. So I've got like performance visual out of it. But it's the format of the show that I did this year is the format of the show next year. It will grow, it's in everything, but it's just slightly different.
Yeah, I think a lot of people use it as like, especially the hour version of maybe a longer play. People use Fringe for it, and then they flesh it out and do it someplace else, maybe more fully mounted. My show this last summer, like I said, the shelf life on it is pretty short because satirizing after shows is not going to be anything even we know about in 2018 because I think they're going away. But 2 years ago, that one was satirized solo shows, one-man shows, and one-person shows, and there's a lot of life left in that, and I'm actually literally working on the screenplay version of it. So yes, there's a life after it. Maybe not as a play, but as a movie.
I would love for my play to have like a full production, mainly just for the stage, like the setting, like to have this home, because we had it was like Thanksgiving and we had this like table and then this a couple stools. So I would like to be able to have like the full experience of the play, and doing the Fringe allowed me to sort of see, okay, where would I want this to go if it were a full production? Like, what could I do with the stage? What could I do? It just sort of like opened up the world, a little bit if I were to do it. So, I don't know. We'll see. Hopefully.
Yeah, I got approached by a producer who wanted to make it into a short, and I just don't know if I have the capacity to write it into a short. So I'm really happy of what it was at Fringe, and I'm happy to have those memories.
Cool. Well, thank you guys so much for coming. We're gonna go to the Copper Still. If anybody wants to come have a drink, you can always ask me more questions, or if anybody else is here. We're gonna kind of be quick out of here. We can try not to dilly-dally too much.
We have a little.
A little time.
We have a show here tonight, but not till 7.
And just for some Fringe announcements as far as what's going on. In the new year, we're going to have, of course, our spring panels, which will focus on the venues first, and then money and promotion, all the fun things that publicity.
Go to all of them.
All of them. And then we will also have our office hours, which is like a networking series that we
Definitely go to
started
that.
in March. And just sign up for our email list, and you'll be notified of all of our future events. Fringe scholarships, our applications are open, so feel free to take a look there. They close November 27. And I just wanted to thank some of our staff that's here. I'm Ellen, do outreach here. We have our new community engagement coordinator, Melissa Alvarez right there. Tiffany just left, our communications director, and we have our staff photographer, Matt Mura, and Dave McKeever. Thank you for filming.
He's back there somewhere.
He's back there somewhere. Yeah, thank you guys so much.